Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for joining my next video that I wanted to do. And in this video, I wanted to sort of discuss again, like I've been, mentioning over the past few months and sort of my experiences of, really understanding identity and myself as a gay man. One of the things that really was a big thing with me whenever I was younger is that I would always sort of do a lot of research. I remember a lot of times when I was younger, I would research so many different things on, just trying to understand who I am and sort of why I have the feelings that I have. And I did so much reading and, I was looking into so many different organizations when I was younger and just trying to sort of find a community, I guess, and find a sense of, belonging in a lot of ways because I did feel like somewhat of an outcast, with who I am, who I was. And so one of the things I want to go over today is a little bit about, some of the resources that, I sort of come across when I was younger and, also getting into adulthood of really, taking time to sort of find a sense of really true, understanding of who I am. And I really hope that this gives you a little bit of resources that you can sort of take with you, especially if you're somebody who's struggling with understanding yourself, and your sexuality itself. And just know that there's always, somebody there who can be there to support you. So, what I want to do is show you some books that I have. Some of these books were given to me, but I also did purchase some recently that I had been wanting to read for a long time. And there's more books that I'm looking to, of course, buy and purchase and share with you guys. So, this is actually in my room. So, I'm a pretty big horror fan. I've got a lot of, different movies, not only horror, I do have some drama based movies. I do have American Beauty. I have this poster in the back, but I do a lot of collecting. So anything that's, physical that I can buy, it's a big thing with me, and I collect a lot. Um, and maybe I'll share a little bit about my collection because I do have a lot of, pretty gay themes in my movie collection as well, that I could probably go over. But again, what I want to do is go over some books that I actually had, come across here recently when I was, coming out again, and I didn't realize I had them. And again, I do have a few books that I've had a while, um, or that I just purchased recently that I do want to share as well. So I did have a friend who actually gave me a good chunk of these, and I know I have more books somewhere, I'm sure. But these are some of the books that I have if you're interested in checking them out. There's a lot of good, resources out there, and I think the more that you take time to, understand sort of the feelings that you have, and with me, I'm a little bit different where I'm really weird. And like, if there's something that I want to, if there's something that's really on my mind and I really want to understand it, I go deep into it. So if you're that type of person, this may help you. This isn't for everybody, I was just always that type of, even growing up, I always wanted to understand more on a deeper level what these things are, and like what I mentioned in another video, I was always big with, health and psychology, and a lot of those different things is, a lot of the main things with health and psychology is that it dives deeper. There's a lot of intricate details, and I was always that type of person that really wanted to understand those details into why, things are the way they are. And so that's kind of why I'm sharing this, because I was really so into researching different, aspects of when it comes to identity and sexuality. So I do have a few here, and a lot of these too can relate to gender itself. I mean, and like I mentioned, when it comes to, a lot of people see, transgender people as being separate from LGBT, but I don't see it that way. I've never seen it that way. Trans people should always be included. I've always thought that, but there's like a whole, big thing where people exclude trans people, and I don't understand it because even though, even if you're a gay person, you don't understand their experiences can still align parallel to your experiences because you know what it feels like to not have an accepting environment around your sexuality. And that's the same, like with your gender identity. And really, to put yourself into that perspective, if you think of it, and again, I'm a gay man. If I put myself into the shoes of somebody who's trans, then think about the other obstacles that they have to go through, that's even more difficult in a lot of ways. So I just think it's important to think about that too, that, our sexuality and gender does have a lot in common. Now there may be things that are, separate when it comes to, you know, being transgender, but I still think that they're very important and they really, coincide with each other. So I do have this one on gender speak, which is basically, going over, gender communication. And, again, a lot of these different books are a little bit older, but there's a lot of really good stuff in a lot of these. Another one I have, again, is Between Men. And a lot of the books too that I have, it's on English literature and male homosexual desire, or homosocial desire, I should say. A lot of these books I do have that sort of go into detail, with like older literature and sort of the, sexual undertones like between men. I do have a lot of that. There's another book I have down here which I'll need to pull out that's basically sort of like a kind of like an anthology of gay literature, and it goes through a lot of the different, throughout time, like really, like we're talking, back in like, biblical related times, but it discusses, you know homosexuality in that way as well, and sort of the stories that were told at those times. I mean, it goes through so many different years and time periods, and that book is really interesting as well. But a lot of these, like, I was always interested in, really, again, like, sort of, like I said, the history is another big thing with me, and sort of understanding, sort of how things were, sort of the social norms, like, when you think of, like the Greek culture and how their whole culture, when it come to, you know homosexuality, and they didn't really have a definition for it, but with men being with men, it wasn't so much of an issue. And there's so many deep things that you can go through when you're researching this topic and sort of understanding it. But I do have this, of course, and then I do have, you know another one, Reinventing Identities. And again, a lot of this does discuss gender, but again, I think it does really connect in a lot of ways. And again, if you guys are interested, take the time to look up, a lot of these books, and sort of get an idea of, if you're wanting to learn more, and wanting to understand these things. And again, a lot of this, some of these can go into, sort of discussing feminism in a lot of ways. And again, some of that can connect again to, LGBTQ issues as well. So that's another one that I have. Again, I have a ton of them here that I got. This one is actually one that I'm pretty sure I got when I was in high school. Um, and it's, about the It Gets Better project. And I mentioned this when I was in high school. A big thing that I was really focused on and I really wanted to happen in high school was to create like an anti-bullying group. That was a huge thing with me. I wanted to happen, but it never really happened. But this is basically just about coming out, overcoming the bullying, of course, and really learning how to understand that even if you're going through a difficult time right now, or even if you're kind of struggling at this moment, that you can, sort of overcome and get past that tough time. And a lot of times, especially when we're younger, we feel like, this is it, this is over, and we don't really take time to think, I've made it this far. I've come to this realization and I've, getting to the point of figuring out myself. This is only just the beginning. And that's like when I think about my life when I was younger, I thought that that wouldn't end. Like those struggles I thought would never end, but they did eventually. It may have took a period of time for those struggles to end, but they ended, and so, when we're younger, we really think about all of this like it's never going to end, but it's really what this is about. I remember I'd got this years ago, and it does have a lot of different, people that have like stories in there. So it's really interesting. Again, this was one that I got. I do also have a novel here. This was given to me by a friend, and this is, basically a gay fiction novel. So that's another thing that you can look into. There's a lot of different, if you're just looking for, fiction based, there's a lot of LGBTQ books. Like The Heated Rivalry, the show is based off of a book that's, a gay romance novel. So there's a lot of different, things you can find if you're not looking into like wanting to research stuff, but this is another good one that a friend gave me. He gave me so many books. Um, these two are what I got recently, which is this one's on Stonewall, which is really good. I was looking up trying to find books that would be, you know, really good and authentic and, well researched when it comes to Stonewall. And this was one of the ones I come across. Now, there's other books that I've looked into. There's a few books that I've ordered recently that does touch on Stonewall, and then there's another one I'm going to get that goes over sort of about Harvey Milk, which is another like I've always interested, especially when I've seen the movie Milk. I was always interested in his story. So, but this goes over the Stonewall riots. There's other books that you can find um, as well on this that dive into other details of Stonewall, but this was the one I found that was really pretty well researched. But that was what I was looking for, as far as Stonewall, and so far it's really good. Again, I've not read the entirety of these. I'm just giving you a little bit of suggestions. But this is another one that I got recently. I'd wanted this book for a long, long time. I really wanted to get this book. I remember seeing it because we had a Hastings nearby, like the bookstore, and it was like the only bookstore we have. We don't even have a bookstore. I have to order a lot of my books on Amazon because we don't have them, or I order them on thrift books too. But this was another one that I bought, and this was one I wanted to read for the longest time because I remember when I was younger and I was researching about the Matthew Shepard, situation that happened, and I remember how much it resonated with me when I had found out about that and was just looking into it and, understanding his story. Because back then, when I was younger, I did donate a little bit to the Matthew Shepard Foundation. But I was like really big in activism, and I still am in a lot of ways. But this was another one that I had really, was so excited to get, and so far it's really good. I've really pushed a decent way through it, and it's really good so far. I know that there's a lot of different perspectives when it comes to the Matthew Shepard story, but I'm so glad to have this book. I wanted it for so long, and I remember seeing it, and I was so afraid to get it because of, what my parents would think, and, back then, and I just remember I was just so scared to read it. But this was another one that I wanted. So this is definitely good so far. Again, I'm just giving you some suggestions. I did want to pull out, I don't know if I have it up here. I don't have it up here, but there's another book that I have as basically, actually, I think it is actually here. These are some other ones that I have. Yeah, so I do have them. I forgot I had them stacked to the top. So this is another one that was given to me on gender trouble. This is talk a little bit about feminism, and then it does talk about, of course, the notion of gender, and having issues with your gender. So that is another good one. This one right here is really my favorite one, I think. This is kind of an older book, but is the Columbian Anthology of Gay Literature, which what I mentioned earlier. And again, it goes over a lot of different, basically stories throughout time that discusses, homosexual relationships and gay relationships. So this is I really enjoy this book. There's a lot of, it goes through various time periods of different, types of literature at that time. This is another one that I bought. The Joy of Gay Sex, which basically you pretty much know what it would probably be about. But it's another good one. It does have a lot of graphic pictures in it, so I will say that. But it's another good one that I have. I've kept it for a while, but they still, pretty sure they may have another edition of that one. But yeah, these are basically all that I have. I'm pretty sure I do have more somewhere, because I also had it was the Matthew Vaughn's book, God and the Gay Christian. And then some of my other books I had, whenever I was in California, are still out there with my friend. Like I had Prayers for Bobby, which is another book that I really love. And then I had Boy Erased, based off the movie. I had a lot of those books out there, which I want to get back and, read them again. But yeah, this is really what I wanted to share with you guys. If you're interested in checking these out, definitely, take the time. They may be a good read for you. Again, if you're struggling with, really understanding yourself, I think this is really good thing to do if you're one of those types of people that really want to dive into sort of the feelings that you're going through. And I think getting a perspective from somebody else, somebody's written work, I think it really does put a lot of, clarity into your mind. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really enjoy sharing these, especially all the stuff that I collect, and especially related to this. And again, I wanted to discuss a lot more when it comes to LGBTQ issues, and really, again, giving you some ideas and resources that you can, take with you and think about. There's a ton of different things that I can discuss further. And I would like to, as I continue to research, to share more, more detailed things, when it comes to the history of all of, the gay movement and things of that nature, because I love this. I've loved this since I was younger, researching all this. And I don't have all the knowledge in the world, but I would love to share more. But thank you guys once again. Really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of these with you. And guys, I really appreciate the support. I've reached 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I'm still doing what I can to make videos as pretty much weekly and daily. So thank you guys once again. I appreciate your time.